We're in Acts 27 tonight. We have one more chapter after this, and we're done the book of Acts. Hey, Joe. Um,
Hey,
no, we're
bit
just
late, huh?
starting here, hon. We're just starting, so that's all good. That's all good. We haven't even started reading yet. We're in Acts 27, and we've just finished now with the court case, if you will, the interrogation. And now Paul is about to set sail for Rome. To go and see Caesar and appeal to Caesar. Um, and we're going to see some stuff here. And I told you how about my day went today, and my day was nowhere near as bad as this. Uh, and we're going to see how God works through tough times tonight. Uh, when God calls us to his plan, okay, to his mission, um, God gives us all a different ministry for the gospel, for the kingdom. You know, Mindy, God's put on your heart to do that purse ministry with the street ladies there in your city, and um, you are going to run into some obstacles and some opposition, uh, kind of like how I have in my ministry. And everyone's going to run into these obstacles, and we're going to see some big obstacles today. And one thing that I see a lot of with Christians is they get a little mystical. And whenever they come into some sort of opposition, if you will, automatically they think, oh, well, then this just isn't God's will for my life. That's wrong. Uh, God will will allow opposition to come to you, especially in your ministry. And the reason for that is that you would cling more to Him and proclaim Him even more. So we are going to read Acts chapter 27. And I'm going to read 1 to 12. And I want to talk about it here because some interesting things. And you might have some questions about some places. And I'll be happy to answer those for you. Okay. And we're going to see another person that we've seen twice before here. And you may not remember him, but I'll point him out to you if you don't remember him. But we're going to get started here in Acts chapter 27. And when it was decided that we should sail for Italy, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to a centurion of the Augustan cohort named Julius. And embarking in a ship of Adramyttium, which was about to sail to the ports along the coast of Asia, we put to sea, accompanied by Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica. And the next day we put in at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him leave to go to his friends and be cared for. And putting out to sea from there, we sailed under the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. And when we had sailed across the open sea, along the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra in Lycia. There the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing for Italy and put us on board. We sailed slowly for a number of days and arrived with difficulty off of Cnidus. And as the wind did not allow us to go further, we sailed under the lee of Crete off Salmone. Coasting along it with difficulty, we came to a place called Fair Havens, near which was the city of Lasea. Since much time had passed, and the voyage was now dangerous because even the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, Sirs, I perceive that the voyage will be with injury and much loss, not only of the cargo and the ship, but also of our lives. But the centurion paid more attention to the pilot and to the owner of the ship than to what Paul had said. And because the harbor was not suitable to spend the winter in, the majority decided to put out to sea from there, on the chance that somehow they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete, facing both southwest and northwest, and spending the winter there. So, what did you guys like about what we read here?
I like how, I have a notification. There we go. I like how Julius showed kindness to Paul, allowing him to go to his friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Julius Caesar, right?
No, this is Julius
okay.
the centurion. So,
Right.
centurion would be a Roman military officer. This is where we get our word century from. So it means that he's over 100 people. Okay. Yeah. So, do you know why he let Paul go see his friends to be cared for?
They're going to be gone for a long trip.
They're going to be gone for a long trip, but Paul is still a prisoner.
Oh.
And in those days, the government did not provide your food or your clothing. You were at the mercy of your friends and family, that they would have to come to the prison and provide your food for you. And so this Julius guy, I'm glad you picked up on it. Paul must have had a good way with people, especially these Romans. Made a really nice impact with them, and built trust with Julius, apparently. That Julius would allow him off the ship as a prisoner to go see friends and be taken care of. Good point there, Lucas. Very good observation. Anything else you guys like? I want to point a couple things out to you. This town or this city called Adramyttium, this is actually a city. So a city from ancient Turkey. Okay, so it would have been Asia Minor at the time, but today it's Turkey. And that's where that ship was, its home base was. Okay, and so they're in Sidon, which is just north of Israel on the Mediterranean coast. So this ship would have come from Turkey down the Mideast border, just north of Israel to Sidon to pick them up. And who else accompanied him? In verse 2. You guys see that?
Other prisoners?
Yeah, this guy's name was Aristarchus. You guys remember?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember meeting
Yeah, I was
Aristarchus?
going to ask.
Yes.
I was going to ask you. That was the one.
Yeah. So Aristarchus, according to this, is from Thessalonica. And I can't remember what chapter it was in, but Aristarchus and another guy named Secundus. You remember that? Accompanied Paul on a little journey, on a missionary journey. And now we see that Aristarchus from Thessalonica is going with Paul to Italy. Now, here's something kind of cool. Paul spent a bare minimum of 3 weeks in Thessalonica, started a church, wrote 2 letters to the Thessalonians, mostly about the end times, the rapture, things like this, because they thought that there was someone that was impersonating Paul and saying that the rapture already happened. And it really disturbed these people. And so when we look at this, Paul spent a bare minimum of 3 weeks in Thessalonica. We see that in chapter 17 of Acts. And out of that, he became a very good friend of this guy named Aristarchus. So much so that he did a small missionary journey with Aristarchus. And Aristarchus is accompanying him to Rome. And you got to kind of read between the lines here, right? And this is what Christian fellowship is. You don't need to know a Christian believer for very long in order to love that brother or that sister deeply. And we see this now with Aristarchus going with Paul, as Paul is a prisoner, to go to Rome. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. Is there anything else you guys like? Okay, is there anything guys that you guys didn't like? Or something that upset you?
I thought you said 7 dust.
Say that again, Lucas?
I thought you said 7 dust when you said second dust.
Second us.
You know, 7 dust. Okay.
Yeah. Aristarchus
I
and
thought you were
Secondus.
saying
Yes.
second dust. I thought you said 7 dust like the band.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. So let's take a look at this ship. What was happening with this ship as they were sailing? Could it get any traction from the wind?
Now it was blowing against them.
Well, against the wind. Okay. So they found a harbor, right? But was the harbor were they able to winter in that harbor?
No.
No. Okay. So what was the consensus that they were going to do?
Go back out to sea.
Go back out to sea. And what did Paul say about that?
Paul didn't think it was a good idea.
No. Okay. Okay. I want you guys to hear something here. Sometimes we will tell people the right thing. And there will be people that will take a vote. And that vote will disagree with you. Did Paul throw a hissy fit at all?
No.
No. The reason why I bring that up is to 2 years ago in our church. There were some people upset with our church leadership. And oh my goodness, the police are active tonight. Anyway, you guys might hear that siren. I live off a busy road here. Anyway, they thought they would take a vote of confidence. And I said, please don't do this. If you do this, you are going to cause so much hurt. And I talked with some elders, and I said, if you do this vote of confidence, and it passes, you are probably going to lose 8 families. And if it doesn't pass, you're going to split the church. Please don't do this. And they did it anyway. And for 2 years, we went through a whole lot of hurt. And relationships were broken. And people left our church. And there were hurt feelings. But I stuck through it. And I did my best to repair the damage that people who should have known better caused. And we see this here with Paul. He says, I don't think it's a good idea, but I'll hang on for the ride. You know what I mean? So they were looking for a place called Phoenix, not Arizona. They're looking for a place called Phoenix to go and winter there. Which means that they're going to harbor the ship there over the winter, right? And then they'll finish their journey. Is there anything you guys didn't understand about this?
So I know Luke's telling the story, but is Luke on the ship with Paul as well?
You betcha.
Okay.
You betcha. Mm-hmm. Great observation there, Steve. Any other questions that you may not understand? Or something that you want me to point out to you? Okay. I just want you to see this here. I want to read it one more time, and then we're going to jump down to verse 13. And we'll go to verse 38. It says in verse 10, this Paul, right here. Let's go to verse 9. Since much time had passed and the voyage was now dangerous because even the fast was already over. You guys know what the fast was?
Where you don't eat.
Yeah, that's right. But this is you notice it's capitalized. The fast was already over. This is actually the Day of Atonement. So it kind of gives you an idea of where they are. Timeline wise in the year. And Paul says, saying, sirs, I perceive that the voyage will be with injury and much loss, not only of cargo in the ship, but also our lives. You see, Paul is paying attention to his surroundings. Paul's not, he is prophesying, okay? We're going to see what happens here soon. He is prophesying. At the same time, he's using his intuition. And he's seeing, okay, the weather's bad. The winds are picking up. We've got no place to winter. This isn't going to be good. Are you guys sure you want to do this? Which brings us to verse 13. So let's pay attention to this because it's going to get into a real wild ride. Now, when the south wind blew gently, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, they weighed anchor and sailed along Crete, close to the shore. But soon a tempestuous wind called the nor'easter struck down from the land. And when the ship was caught and could not face the wind, we gave way to it and were driven along. Running under the lee of a small island called Cauda, we managed with difficulty to secure the ship's boat. That means their lifeboat, right? After hoisting it up, they used supports to undergird the ship. Then, fearing that they would run aground on the Syrtis, they lowered the gear, and thus they were driven along. Since they were violently storm-tossed, they began the next day to jettison the cargo. And on the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope of our being saved was at last abandoned. This is not good, is it? Since they had been without food for a long time, Paul stood up among them and said, "Men, you should have listened to me and not have set sail from Crete and incurred this injury and loss. Yet now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For this very night there stood before me an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I worship. And he said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has granted you all those who sail with you. So take heart, men, for I have faith in God that it will be exactly as I have been told. But we must run aground on some island.' When the 14th night came, so they are in this nor'easter for 2 weeks straight, being battered by the waves and not seeing the sun or the stars. Could you imagine the fear in these men? When the 14th night had come, as we were being driven across the Adriatic Sea, about midnight the sailors suspected that they were nearing land. So they took a sounding and found 20 fathoms. A little farther on, they took a sounding again and found 15 fathoms. And fearing that we might run on the rocks, they let down 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for day to come. And as the sailors were seeking to escape from the ship, and had lowered the ship's boat into the sea under pretense of laying out anchors from the bow, Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, 'Unless these men stay in the ship, you cannot be saved.' Then the soldiers, I got 2 pages and one, no. Then the soldiers cut away the ropes of the ship's boat and let it go. As day was about to dawn, Paul urged them all to take some food, saying, 'Today is the 14th day that you have continued in suspense and without food, having taken nothing. Therefore I urge you to take some food, for it will give you strength, for not a hair is to perish from the head of any of you. And when he said these things, he took bread, and giving thanks to God, in the presence of all, he broke it and began to eat. Then they all were encouraged and ate some food themselves. We were in all 276 persons in the ship. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship, throwing out the wheat into the sea. So what did you guys like about what we read here?
Hate to interrupt you, but that was very interesting. I just had a conversation with a truck driver talking about Jesus being a prophet and a savior.
Yeah.
And he was just going on about who gave away Israel or something. And I said, well, who created the world?
Yeah.
Is it God? Then how does any other country have permission to give away another country when it belongs to God?
Yeah.
And I just blew his mind. And I said, how does a bank own a piece of land when God created it?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense? And he goes, you just went too far. And I said, I just woke you up.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't know how to think.
I liked that.
Go ahead, Tamara.
I was just gonna say that I like that what Paul was told is what happened. Like they survived, they made it, and they're alive.
That's it. That's very good. Excellent, Tamara. Anything else you guys liked?
Probably gain some more believers after that too. That would have been a long 14 days,
Yeah.
not knowing where you are, feeling upside down and backwards, and coming out the other side.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. This almost reminds me of the story of Jonah. You know, Jonah and the whale? Very similar. Very interesting. Good observations. Anyone else?
Kind of sounded like they had faith because he said to eat, and then they threw the wheat overboard.
So why do you think they threw the wheat overboard, Gina?
Well, I think it's kind of sounds to me like by then they realized Paul was right and they trusted him.
Could be.
To me,
Could be. So what did they just go through for 2 weeks?
oh, maybe the wheat was wet.
Could be wet. Wheat could be wet. The wheat's also heavy.
Yeah.
You notice he also threw the tackle overboard
Yep.
because you're going to have to, you're not going to have a full kitchenette suite on there, right? Not like a big cruise ship. So they'd have to catch
Yeah.
their food. So these guys have not eaten in 2 weeks. Could you imagine the seasickness
Mm-hmm.
and not eating in 2 weeks and realizing they came, it says that they came to the point where they realized this is it. They're going to die. Can you imagine getting to that point? Kind of crazy. Kind of scary. Have you guys ever been to that point of absolute hopelessness?
Oh, yes. After the fire.
Yeah. Now, Joel, let's talk about the fire. What happened shortly after that fire, Joe? Who revealed himself to you?
Which,
Well,
I don't know.
After
What do
the
you mean?
fire. Oh, you just became a believer right before the fire. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, I was baptized in September, but the fire was in February.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that I was woken by the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no doubt in my mind.
Mm. Yeah, I know. We talked on the phone about your story. I remember that. That was,
Yeah.
it's quite
My
the
kids
story.
and I were about 30 seconds more. They said if I hadn't have woke up, my two boys and I would have not woke up. So there was no fire alarms. There was no warning. So yeah, you tell me, right? Like,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
I do beat myself up every day because it's just something you have to go through, the trauma of what if I didn't wake up. I know I have faith in God, I definitely do. But yeah, just, you don't want to see your kids perish. So
No.
how did I make it? Like, there's no other reason. It was
Yeah.
like someone sat me up in my bed physically. It was weird, but
Oh,
I'm
no.
very
I
grateful.
hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. And with Paul, these guys have consigned themselves to die, really. Sec, is my screen getting fuzzy? Try that.
No.
Okay. It looks a little blurry. Anyway, all these men consign themselves, like they realize they're going to die. They're not going to make land. And Paul says, no, an angel from the God whom do you notice that he said, not the God that I worship? Have you noticed that? He said, the God that I serve. Do you know that you cannot worship without serving? There are two Hebrew words. Now, the New Testament is written in Greek, okay, but there's two Hebrew words for worship. One Hebrew word means to lie prostrate, bow down. The other word for worship is interchanged with service. You see, serving God is an act of worship. He says, the God whom I serve. And I think it's really cool on how Lucas was talking about how he served God today and talking with that truck driver. Those little conversations, you're serving God. And because you're serving God, you're worshiping God. Really kind of. And what did the angel tell Paul? How many people were going to die?
None.
Look at
None.
that crab chunk.
Say that again, Joe?
I was gonna say, didn't he say that if any of the men were to leave the ship, then everyone would perish?
That's right.
So all 270.
Yeah, 200. I got to look at,
70.
yeah,
276.
276. Yeah. So that's interesting. If you leave this ship, you're going to die. Interesting. Okay, well, let's keep on going. Let's finish up this chapter. Verse 39. Now, when it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they noticed a bay with a beach on which they planned, if possible, to run the ship ashore. So they cast off the anchors and let them in the sea, at the same time loosening the ropes that tied the rudders. Then, hoisting the foresail to the wind, they made for the beach, but striking a reef, they ran the vessel aground. The bow stuck and remained immovable, and the stern was broken up by the surf. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners lest any should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wishing to save Paul, kept them from carrying out the plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump aboard first and make for the land. And the rest, sorry, let me read that again. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and make for the land, and the rest on planks on pieces of the ship. And so it was that all were brought safely to land. So what did you guys like about this that we read?
That the angel forecasted the men would live if they stayed on board, and that was promised and came true.
That's right. That's right, Joe. Anything else? Anything else you guys like?
I like that officer told them, well, not to kill any of the prisoners, and they didn't.
And why didn't they? Why didn't he? Why did he tell them not to kill them?
Said he wanted
I
Paul to be
think-
alive.
Yes, Will. Yes, because he was kind of partial to Paul.
Yeah,
Didn't
and
you
what
see-
Paul said, that they had to stay all on the ship or they would die.
Okay.
So
Do you see something backwards here? From every story
Yes.
about Paul, what's backwards on this story?
All the soldiers are basically trying to keep him alive. Like, they're working with him, not against him.
That's right. Here we go. Every city he went to, his life was threatened, or he was definitely injured, and people tried to kill him. And over here, people are trying to save him. Why was the officer, the centurion, trying to save Paul?
I'm gonna throw this out there that maybe God was getting a hold of his attention just a little bit.
Oh, the
Or
centurion?
Yeah, he's definitely inquisitive. Like Paul, he knows Paul's on a journey. He knows what's going on.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, but there's something even a little bit deeper.
Because he had to get to talk to Rome.
That's right, Steve. And who promised that? God did.
Yes.
And so I want you to see something. Who did God work through to save Paul's life?
the centurion.
This Roman centurion. Does it say in the scripture that this centurion was a believer?
Nope.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And what I'm saying here is, I want to be very careful how I say this, because I don't want to confuse you. But there are unbelievers who are instruments of God for the purpose of God. Did you catch that? It doesn't mean this man was saved. It does not mean this man is going to heaven. Okay? This is a little mind-blowing. But he was an instrument of God for the purpose of God.
Just like the Pharaoh and the armies, like he was talking
You
about.
are correct. And this might blow your mind. Judas was an instrument of God for the purpose of God, but Judas was not saved.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Okay. Now, I don't know if this centurion ever became a believer or not. We don't know. But the reason why I bring this up is, remember how I said God is always at work around you?
Yep.
Okay. God will use unbelievers to further his kingdom. Did you hear that correctly?
You said be careful of who you cast out of your life.
Can you say that again, Steve?
Didn't you say be careful who you cast out of your life because some of them non-believers can help you?
That's right.
I think that's what you said last week.
Yeah, you gotta be very careful. Very careful. God's at work, and he was at work in the life and the heart of a Roman centurion that had a soft spot for Paul. It does not say he was a believer, but it doesn't say he wasn't. But it does not say he was. I thought that was kind of interesting. Why were the other officers going to kill these prisoners? Do you know why?
Less to deal with.
It's actually worse than that.
Is it really? To eat them?
Eat them.
What? Pardon me, Gina?
Eat them.
I didn't hear you.
They
Gina.
were hungry to eat them.
To eat them?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
These Roman guards, these Roman soldiers, they would be the same as prison guards. And the penalty, if one of your prisoners escaped, according to Rome, is they're going to kill the prison guard because he didn't do his job.
Oh, okay.
So it was better for them to kill the prisoners than to be killed. Now, here's the thing. If they escaped, and most of them can't swim because they have to take planks, what's the chances they'll be found out? Probably slim to none. But it's ingrained in them. We better kill them, or we'll be killed. Very interesting. How many of those people died?
0.
0. Now let me bring this home. Why did none of those people die?
Because of Paul.
Oh,
Okay. Now let's go a little bit deeper here. Why because of Paul?
Because he had to get to Rome.
Okay, because God has a plan for Paul.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. I want you to see God's love here. Because of God's love for Paul, instead of only letting Paul survive, he kept everyone associated with Paul on that boat alive. Not because of Paul, but because of God's love for Paul, he saved these other people. You guys see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I think so.
Because of God's love on you, because of God's love for you, how many people around you is God going to save because of his love for you?
I see what you're saying. Didn't we just pray for someone tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Did we not?
We did.
We
I
prayed for a
think
couple
two,
of them.
two of them.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's comforting.
Yes. Kind of driving it home pretty quick.
So, what does this tell us about Jesus? That his
Excellent
love
question.
for us,
Excellent question. You know, what does this tell us about Jesus?
that his love for us will also protect others
That is it.
and help us save others.
Isn't that something else? Now, did Paul go through hardship on this?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah,
They all
Over
did.
and over and over.
over and over for 2 weeks straight. It was like
Yeah.
to me, it would be mental, physical torture for 2 weeks.
Physical.
Yeah, that's right.
I like that. Not only is he a God and creator, but he also walked the earth and understood what it's like to be human
Mm-hmm.
with all the feelings and the confusion. So he understood that walking the earth. And going back home, he took that bit of knowledge as well and understood humanity a lot more.
Yes.
Understood our struggles.
Yes. Very much so, Lucas. It's almost like you're reading the book of Hebrews. Have you read the book of Hebrews yet, Lucas?
No, but it's funny that you say that because I was just hinted at the book of Hebrews not too long ago.
Yeah. Book of Hebrews might mess you up a little bit. So when I say that, it's designed to scare the life out of you in some areas, and it's designed to give you a lot of hope in other areas. But if you got any questions, just hit me up, okay? I'll walk you through it.
Pretty interesting considering every time I ask myself a question, I can give myself an answer.
Yeah,
And I don't know why.
God working through you, my friend. Anyway, I think that concludes our part of this Bible study. I'm going to stop this video and we'll have question and answer time.